welcome to the Pink Opaque, a new podcast series looking back at the 1990s young adult network horror series, The Pink Opaque. My name's Masolko, and I'll be your host through this process as we look back across 5 seasons of what was really a magical, eerie show that meant a lot to those who viewed it. New episodes will be out every month when there's a full moon, which is an easy way to remember, and just always be careful because Mr. Melancholy is at the height of his powers when there's a full moon. That'll make more sense to you as we go. Some of you are probably listening to this and asking yourself, what on earth is the Pink Opaque? Well, this 30-minute series ran every Saturday on the Young Adult Network at 10:30 p.m. around the years of 1993 to 1998. Young Adult Network had a smaller cable reach than similar channels like Nickelodeon or the Disney Channel, meaning some parts of the country never even had access to it if you were in the U.S., and while it did air in some overseas markets, accounts vary as to where it aired. It's just not really clear. A lot of this was pre-commercial internet or early days of commercial internet, so a lot of those records just don't seem to exist. And Young Adult Network, of course, hasn't been around for quite a while now, so it's not like there's record books there that you could really take a look at, even if there were accessible. So, The Pink Opaque is a series that features 2 teen lead characters, Isabel and Tara. They meet during a sleepaway camp, and both girls live across the county from each other, so they're not necessarily right near each other. They don't go to the same school or anything like that. But what's interesting is both girls have a tattoo of what looks like a hot pink ghost. Kind of think of like the Pac-Man ghost, but a little swooshier, and it has glasses. And both of them have this hot pink tattoo on the back of their neck. Tara inducts Isabel into a secret group called the Pink Opaque in the first episode, and Tara and Isabel are both gifted with psychic connection that allows them to see things other people can't see and to communicate with each other across a distance. They go on to face monsters of the week, representing teen fears and insecurities, primarily coordinated by the evil Mr. Melancholy, literally the man in the moon. So we know that they live across the county from each other, but it's never said what county, what state, what towns they both live in, anything like that. It's supportive, I think, just supposed to be a kind of a suburban kind of thing, just what you'd think of as just small town USA, but not too small either. So when you have 2 leads who don't live in the same spot, it's going to create some challenges. It's going to really make you think about how you would incorporate them both into a plot unless something is happening across the entire county or even on a larger scale. So a lot of the time what you get is one of the characters is the lead of a story while the other is providing support in the background. You do get a little bit of supporting cast for both characters, although that kind of shifts around a little bit as the series progresses. Tara's kind of a loner to some degree outside of her relationship with Isabel, and Isabel just kind of never really seems to find her group a lot of the time. She's always searching for that. So you do see some background supporting characters throughout the series, but it's really those primary 2 characters and the villains of the week are the ones who drive the plot forward most of the time. And when we talk about the narrative, one thing I want to point out up front is that I'll be spending a lot more time probably talking about the Watsonian aspect of the discussion rather than the Doylist discussion. And what that means is discussing what happens in a Sherlock Holmes story versus what Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was doing when he was writing a story. Or similarly, what Josh Pemberton was doing when he was writing this series. I know he can kind of be a divisive figure in modern fandom, so I kind of just want to stay away from that for the most part. You'll occasionally hear me talk about the actors and actresses involved in the series, but I'll be focusing more on the actual content of the writing, the content of what happens in the stories, and so on, which is what the Watsonian approach is. So that little bit of intellectualism aside, what made me want to do a podcast about the Pink Opaque in the first place? Well, for one thing, it's baffling to see how much the footprint of this show has been washed away over time. An out-of-print episode guide was originally published following season 3, so you could learn more about the series that way. And a very, very limited print run revision was done after season 5. I mean, you might be able to find one on eBay for a very high cost or at a small used bookstore somewhere just hiding in a stack of books waiting to be found. But things like that, it's just, there's not a lot of footprint for this. When the Pink Opaque was originally started, the internet was still a very fledgling thing. There was some message boards, some chat rooms, but archives of that material doesn't exist anymore. So much of the fandom around the show, so much much of the official material around the show. You're just not going to find that in the wild unless you really just kind of fluke upon something. And it's, like I said, just hiding in a stack somewhere. But hey, fingers crossed, it's always worth keeping an eye out. Now, why can you not watch episodes of the Pink Opaque just readily? It seems like so many things are streaming nowadays, but this series is very peculiar in that there was a performance in almost every episode by a musical artist. And it was a real artist, usually an alternative musician or band, and they would perform at this club called the Double Lunch. And that's a venue that both of the main characters might be frequenting at any given time. It's an all-ages club, so kind of the cool place in town to go and hang out. And while these musical guests really added a lot to the series and introduced people to some new music they may not have heard back then, the rights issues for that are now what's holding the series up. The folks who own the copyrights assigned to the Young Adult Network, now that they're out of business, they're very stingy, and they seem like they just say, if we can't profit on it, we don't want this material out there anywhere. So when you do see occasionally a clip of the Pink Opaque shows up, say on YouTube or some similar site, it gets struck down immediately. I don't claim any rights to the Pink Opaque, I'll just say right here. So again, all credit to the Young Adult Network. I'm not trying to infringe on your copyrights or what have you. And I hope that someday that things get a little more amicable to where you are able to secure the music rights, that we can see these. I mean, I guess DVDs and Blu-rays are on the way out, but just in some form of media, it would be really wonderful to be able to see these again and be able to share these stories with folks who've never seen it before. So I am going to be going back to my memories, what I've seen in some of the books, as well as the rare clip I might have somewhere on some old disc or some old VHS tape, and just be able to talk to you about what my impressions were of these stories and what they meant to me and what I might be able to remember about what fandom thought of them at the time. For those of you who do remember, the Pink Opaque is a cherished part of our youth. So speaking to you all right now, the folks who were Pink Opaque fans and really remember and love the series, this show resembles a part of life and reflects a part of life where emotions are heightened, possibilities seem endless. Every event feels like a life-defining moment. That moment when you're not a child anymore, but you're still not fully embracing your adulthood yet either. You may not know who you want to be, you may not know what you want to be, and you're trying to figure that out still. You're trying to find the people who are going to be your friend group, and that may shift and change over time, or you might find a group that's really strong up front, and you've got that support network and people who really look out for you and look up to you. So there's a lot of variation in that, and it changes for everybody based on their own experience, but I think for a lot of us who are fans of the Pink Opaque, we did see ourselves through the sentimental, tentative Isabel or tough, protective Tara. We also hoped we could find a friend we connected to that strongly, someone who understood us like no one else could, who could make us believe in ourselves in a way no adult possibly could. The Pink Opaque were outsiders. Odds are we as well who were fans of the show. It can't be stated strongly enough that, while Young Adult Network policies made explicit queer representation off limits, there were certainly aspects of Tara that were queer-coded, and there was enough subtext in certain stories to fill multiple texts. So for some fans, they were able to relate to Tara through that as well. And as the series progressed, the small dedicated fan base, we would often congregate in those chat rooms, like I said, or be on message boards, but it was still a fledgling internet at that point. Things were very new as far as commercial dial-up. You had time limits, if you can imagine that. You could only use 40 hours a month, and then after that, you had to pay extra. So it's sad to think how much of that material we had back then is lost to time. It's too bad that conventions never sprung up or something like that. Some kind of fan fest gathering. Would have been really neat to see something along those lines. So, following this debut episode, I'll be back every full moon, like I mentioned. I'm going to discuss a double bill of episodes from the Pink Opaque. While it is a solo podcast, odds are you'll see some guests, or hear some guests at least, who drop in along the way. I really encourage you, if you're a fan, or even if you're new to the Pink Opaque, reach out. Let us know your thoughts on social media. You can find the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky. We're there under the Pod Opaque, all one word. And you can also find us at thepodopaque@gmail.com. We are up on YouTube as well, so you can leave comments there. And let us know, do you have any memories of the series? Were you more of an Isabel, or were you more of a Tara back then? How about now? Did you play the commercial card game, collectible card game? Sorry, the CCG that was released in 1994. Yeah, just like Pokemon and Magic and so many other games, they actually had a Pink Opaque card game, and it didn't last long. There was only 2 sets, and I'm sure I'll maybe do a special episode on that in the future. But for those of us who were into those nerdy kind of things back then, it was a neat collectible for sure, and it'd be great if those were easier to find nowadays. So as we go through the series, I do want to kind of expand upon the lore and what it means for the Pink Opaque as a story platform, how things evolve and how things develop. Like I said earlier, the narrative changes quite a bit in terms of narrative approaches and how they try to balance the 2 characters, as well as just maybe some more serious themes do find a way to creep their way in as the series progresses. But there's so much to expand on, and so much of it does develop over those 5 seasons that I'm going to let that play out over time. And for now, I'd like to talk to you about the pilot episode, of course, where it all started, cleverly named The Pilot, as so many series are. What's funny is a pilot episode is often something which is created for networks to be able to see how a series would play out and what it would be like on a weekly basis. At least that's the way they used to work way back in the day. But this pilot is so different from the rest of the Pink Opaque in the fact that it's one of the only times we ever see Tara and Isabel in the same place at the same time. The characters are both attending a sleepaway camp called Camp Pollution. And while that seems like an ill-advised camp name and it's kind of a little silly, the idea of this camp was for environmentally friendly youth who could go to this camp, learn about ways to engage in their local community and things like that. Hey, back in the 90s, environmentalism was kind of a big thing for us youth, so we were really into it. I mean, I was Earth Club, maybe you were in an Earth Club too, but, so there's this Camp Pollution that they're attending. They don't know each other yet. Isabel doesn't know anyone when she shows up to this, and she's our audience identification character. She's really who we follow kind of as our main plot thread throughout this story as we get involved in the world of the Pink Opaque and as it unfolds around her and unfolds around us, the viewers. There's a welcoming speech from the camp owner, and you can see Isabel's not quite sure where to sit, or she just feels really uncomfortable. And after this speech, we then see in the dining hall, again, Isabel is kind of slowly sort of walking through. She's got her food tray, but she just doesn't seem sure where to sit, or just seems very meek and timid at that point. The one interesting thing is, as she turns away from the camera, we see a pink ghost tattoo like I described earlier. And you can see it's the logo for our podcast. Thanks to Chris Ruiz, who did the podcast logo. Just throw that in there real quick. Looks really great. And this iconic pink ghost tattoo starts to glow on the back of Isabel's neck. Nobody seems to notice this, aside from across the room. There's this cool young woman, hair slicked back, leather jacket. I mean, she's the one who ditches PE to go hang out under the bleachers. You could tell up front. I mean, this is the Fonzie of the show. This is the character who is definitely going to be cool, but at the same time, she has this look on her face that's somewhere between bemused and sinister when she sees that tattoo glow. We don't see a tattoo on her neck at this point, but we have to wonder, what is that smile and what does she know, or what is she hiding? Clearly, this other girl, Isabel, is very uneasy about the situation as it is currently. So just what's going on here? And you almost hope that, she isn't going to pick on or be mean to this shy, nerdy girl. The scene then changes to the next morning, and we see this other character, this character we haven't seen yet. Young boy, seems very nerd-coded. He's walking through the woods, and poor dude has like zinc oxide on his nose. He's got a helicopter hat with the propeller on top. He's wearing Birkenstocks with socks. This poor little guy, he looks like he's probably having a rough time. And sure enough, he is. He's lost in the woods, and he's trying to find his way back to the camp. All of a sudden, he hears in these distorted voices, Marco Polo, and these that's not what they sound like. That was lousy, but you hear these Marco and Polo call outs, kind of like the old game you would play in a swimming pool. And all of a sudden, there's an ominous wind that seems to kick up, and you see the propeller on his hat start to go faster and faster. All of a sudden, he looks ahead, and he has a shocked look on his face as he sees 2 androgynous moon people. I'm trying to think how to describe them. They're in these sort of full body suits that are white, which are tight on top and have very flowy sort of pants, and they're doing this interpretive ballet dance. And why do I say moon people? Well, Marco and Polo have tremendous designs. These are characters that show up as the primary henchmen of Mr. Melancholy throughout the series. They're not in every episode. I'm not even sure they're in half the episodes, but they are sort of his henchmen on Earth, and they're named Marco and Polo. Both of them have these craggy blue makeup faces that just look really kind of gross and ugh. And they have these long waves of hair on the top and a matching goatee that's wavy on the bottom, or not wavy, but a wave. And it gives the impression of a crescent moon-shaped head, almost like if you remember the old Mac Tonight guy from the old McDonald's ads way back when. I mean, it looks like that. They just have this crescent shape to their head. And it's interesting because each has sort of a opposing, so one's curved over to the left and one's curved to the right. And, they kind of are very much touchy-feely, I guess, or just very clinging together and doing these interpretive dances very slowly, very sinisterly. It feels very odd and strange. It's meant to discomfort the viewer. And they look like villains you might have seen in Sailor Moon even a few years after this show aired. So that's another kind of reference point for those villains, and many of the villains we incorporate in this series or encounter in this series. So we hear the sound of something hitting the ground, and it flashes quickly from Marco and Polo back to the nerdy kid. We don't see him, but we see his compass lying on the ground in a pile of leaves, and the compass is just spinning wildly. So obviously whatever they're doing is causing even more of this confusion and distraction of what's happening to this kid, why he's lost, and after that it fades out. So we don't know what happened to him. We don't know what they did with him, if they abducted him or something worse or what have you. But it's definitely creepy, and you feel unsafe around those characters. So it was very interesting. The next morning, the camp owner, this is really fun, back in the 90s, he organizes a search for the missing kids. He doesn't call the police. He doesn't have many older camp counselors. He just has all of the kids go into the woods and split up to look for this missing child. So I'm sure the parents would have been really thrilled had they known that this was the camp owner's idea as far as how to handle it. But we see a pensive Isabel kind of making her way through the forest. She's kind of walking slowly. She looks kind of uncertain. Some other kids have paired off and things like that, but she's just kind of, again, isolated on her own. She's walking along for a little bit, and all of a sudden, the wind starts to kick up around her, just like we saw in that previous scene. Just as before, we hear the ominous calls of Marco and Polo again, and the ghost tattoo on Isabel's neck flashes as we see them in the distance, and we see her facing them. So we see the back of her neck, we see the tattoo start to light up, and Isabel is just terrified. She's frozen in place, much like the other kid we saw. And they slowly start to creep closer to her, doing another sort of dancey motion move forward in tandem. And Isabel's just petrified. She's not moving. All of a sudden, the cool girl we saw from before in the dining hall shows up. She yells out, "Hey, crater faces." And she swings this giant heavy branch. She swings a few times and they sort of manage to get out of the way. Eventually she hits one. Later on we would know that was Polo that she hit, but they aren't really named explicitly between the two in this one, and still kind of too new for us to know who is who. But when she does hit one, there's a blink effect, and all of a sudden it just disappears. Polo disappears into a cloud of white dust. The other one, all of a sudden though, who we now know as Marco, grabs her from behind and has her in a tight lock. So Tara, even though she managed to take one out, she drops the branch, and Marco's kind of dragging her away and wrenching her around, and she looks back and she yells at Isabel to do something. And after a moment of panic, Isabel looks at the branch, and again, this is a heavy branch. It's not a small branch. It's like a big walking stick size stick. And Isabel's sort of, she's still panicked. She's still worried. She's upset. She doesn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden we hear the other girl's voice in her head saying, "You can do this. You have the power. You're strong enough." Isabel picks up that big branch and swings it at the other being, Marco. And all of a sudden, he also disappears, or they also disappear, covering the cool girl's jacket in white dust. So she manages to save the girl who saved her a moment ago. So we then cut to the dock sitting in front of a large lake that's at the camp. It seems to be like early evening, twilight time. It's starting to get dark, but there's still little bits of color in the sky. And it's a really beautifully shot scene. Everything on the background on the ground looks very normal. The grass, the dock, etc. The water sort of rippling in the light as the two girls sit in front of each other, facing each other on that dock. And in the background, though, you have what looks like a sky that's been sort of painted with some pastels and darker colors mixed in. The lights sort of twinkle in a really cheaply animated way that's very endearing. It looks not natural whatsoever, but it looks utterly beautiful. It's just, you wish the sky could look that magical. Aside from one thing is you see this full moon in the sky. And probably the best reference point would be the Georges Méliès film The Trip to the Moon, which came out back in the early 1900s. It's a silent film, and of course you've seen probably the shot of the rocket hitting the moon in the eye in an old black and white silent film footage. Another point of reference might be if you've seen the Tonight Tonight video by Smashing Pumpkins. That actually came out a few years after this episode, and I don't know if this episode was an inspiration or if it was just the Georges Méliès short. But either way, though, you've got Mr. Melancholy up there, the man in the moon, kind of darkened eyes, looks sort of raccoonish, but otherwise white face against this craggy white moon, and just has these very exaggerated expressions of annoyance and frustration, doesn't say anything, and the girls really don't acknowledge him in this scene, but we see him. We see him watching them, and he is very upset, and it's comical, but at the same time, it is slightly unnerving as well. So the cool girl who we now know as Tara explains that she knew that she and Isabel had a shared destiny from the moment the moment she did see the tattoo across the dining hall early in the episode. In fact, she kind of even had this weird feeling and idea that before she ever even showed up to camp that something special could and would happen here. She explains to Isabel that the two girls make up the Pink Opaque. They can communicate via psychic link. They can see things outside the standard bounds of human perception, and they're tasked with stopping Mr. Melancholy, the evil man in the moon who wants to turn the world into the midnight realm. Isabel is still somewhat in disbelief, pondering how she can have a destiny when she doesn't even have a driver's license. That's such a wonderfully teenage touchstone sort of thing, that one of the biggest things in life, of course, is getting your driver's license. And she all of a sudden has this mythic destiny and these magical abilities. Tara assures Isabel that she's not going crazy. She should never let anybody tell her she's going crazy. And that's one of the first and really most special moments of these characters building each other up and reassuring each other and teaching each other how special they are. And it goes back and forth a lot throughout the series. It's, like I said earlier, they both have some doubts. They both have fears they encounter. And it's just really special to see this friendship and this support network develop. The two girls take each other's hand. They lean forward with the top of their heads touching each other, and both tattoos start to glow. Things fade to closing credits as Mr. Melancholy sneers off in the distance. So this scene really is a key example of why so much of the Pink Opaque did resonate with folks, and Tara and Isabel just forming this bond really quickly. Tara reinforcing Isabel as special. There's no explanation to what the Pink Opaque really is. It's just apparently these two special girls who have special abilities and a connection, and now they have a team name as well for the two of them. If there's any more members, we don't know. There could be. It doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like it's just these two. We certainly get the idea that Tara knows more of what's going on than Isabel at this point, although even Isabel starts to have some thoughts and ideas flooding into her mind where she does have some familiarity and she does have some knowledge. How does this happen? Where does this all come from? Like I said, are there more members of the Pink Opaque? We'll find out as the series progresses a little bit, but a lot of it is just kept obscure. It's kept unknown. And it really is not something we need the answer to. What we need to know is that there's these two girls with a special connection who are going to protect the people around them and try to stop the evil plans of this evil mythical mastermind. So we do see here that, again, Isabel's got this uncertainty about things, and that's going to be a key theme of the episode, is that, or not just the episode, the series, of course, that she does have some uncertainty. She's a little more shy, a little more slow to take risks at things, whereas Tara is outspoken to a fault almost at times, and she's much more reckless, even though she's kind of book smart about all this demonology stuff. So there's kind of a fun contrast there. But there's just this difference between the two characters, and this idea also that some people know what they want in life. Even when they're teenagers or younger, they know what they want to do. Tara knows what she wants to be part of the Pink Opaque. She knows she wants to fight these forces of evil. But what does she want outside of that? And for Isabel, I mean, she spends much of the series trying to figure out what she wants, who she wants to be, who she wants to be friends with, what she wants to do in life, what she's trying to do. And I wish I could be as assured as Tara, but quite honestly, I probably have a lot more in common with Isabel, both then and now. That's about it for the Pod Opaque episode 1. We'll be back next month to discuss season 1 episodes Homecoming to Get You and Which Witch is Which. If you're so inclined, drop us a line on social media. You can find us on Blue Sky, on Facebook, and on Instagram at the Pod Opaque. You can also find us on YouTube under that name. And if you'd like to send us a good old-fashioned email, you can send it to thepodopaque@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you, and just please let us know what you think about the episodes. Share any memories you have, any cool merch you picked up along the way. Maybe you got to meet somebody from the show, one of the actors or one of the writers. And we'd love to hear from you. Just any kind of thoughts, reminiscences, and why the show is special to you would be greatly appreciated. Let us know if you mind us sharing it on the air or not, so we don't just put you out there. But, again, I'd love to hear more from the fans of this series. I think it's really special to a small group of people. But for those of us who do love it, it's one of the most special things in the world. Thanks for listening, and we will be back next full moon. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Pod Opaque. You can find us on most social media sites under the Pod Opaque or at thepodopaque@gmail.com. The theme music for this podcast was written and performed by Devin Nelson. You can find more of their music by looking up Devin Nelson on Bandcamp, link in the description. We'll see you next month when the moon is full. Please remember to check in on those you care about, don't be afraid to ask someone for help, and take care of yourself in the meantime. After all, we are the Pink Opaque.